It seems that I have ruined the intro. So, Jesse, I've got to do it again. Give me 1 second here.
Oh, okay.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Mark Hughes, and I am here to host Makercast. I should be here with my friend Daniel Bogdanoff, but unfortunately, he can't be here. He's doing something a little bit more exciting. All that means is we'll bring him back another time. I do a little bit of everything in my free time. I make things, I break things. Mostly I break things. Occasionally I make things. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk to some of my friends and some of the people who came here today. So with that, let's start off and let's meet our first guest, Jesse Robinson. Jesse, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm Jesse Robinson. I'm an electrical engineer that works on atom probe hardware by day. By night, I work on just kind of my own electronics and software. I'm part of the workers on Mark's project, Boondock Echo, which controls ham radios, and then I do my own little light projects and stuff on the side.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jesse. Next up, we've got bitluni. You're muted, my friend.
This is common. Okay. Hello, I'm bitluni. I'm a maker and I happen to document my stuff on YouTube. And probably many of the viewers know me from Makercasts last month already.
Wonderful. And we're sure going to be talking to you a whole lot more as we go along. Next up, Elliot.
Hey, I'm Elliot. In real life, I'm not an engineer, but in my spare time, I'd say I'm a maker. I like to play in my backyard and make stuff in my shop.
And some of that is some seriously cool stuff. So we've got to get you documenting more, Elliot, because you need to be big. It's good
Okay.
stuff. Brian Lindhall is not an engineer, but he's seen one on TV. Tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
I could probably qualify as an engineer in several fields, but actually, I've claimed the title of software engineer for years. But I'm currently, professionally, I'm a machinist, CNC operator. I have interests in electronics, mechanical engineering, 3D printing, machining, all kinds of things. Currently trying to remember some stuff about PC design, PC board design. Just trying to keep enjoying things.
All right. Thank you, Brian. And next up, we've got Andrew Ferguson.
Hello. Yep. By day, I'm an electrical engineer. I work in the aerospace industry. And by night, when I'm not being a dad or working on home projects, I like to dabble in doing circuit design and software programming for said projects.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. The idea today was to have Daniel Bogdanoff, and we were going to talk a whole lot about test equipment and measurement, but he did have a thing that came up. So we will talk about test and measurement, but I'd also love to know what kind of projects you guys are working on. Daniel and I have our own little Discord server called Creators Corner, and we decided to come over to Makers and do a little cross-pollination. I wanted to meet new people, find out new and interesting things, and you were some of the most interesting and most unknown people that I know of, so I wanted to let the world know about you too. So with that, maybe we could just do a round and show one project that you've done recently that you think the world needs to know about. Anybody want to go first?
Yeah, I can go.
Cool. Andrew, it's yours.
So let me hold it up here. So I'm working on this, which is, it's going to be a backpack for a Pico Pi W. And what it is it's a I2S digital to analog converter with a amp on it and a volume control built in. And it's part of a project I'm working on to create a little podcast listening module. The Pico podcast player is what I've called it. And the idea is I wanted something next to my bed that had no lights, no display, no nothing, just maybe a couple buttons. Because I always listen to like the same podcast when I'm going to sleep. And I'm trying to get my phone out of the bedroom. And I thought this would be a great project I could do. And it's going well, a little bit slow. I'm having some programming issues with buffers. but my circuit design is worked amazingly well first try. So very proud of that, and that's what I'm working on currently.
Andrew, that's pretty cool. Can you hold that up again for us for a minute?
Yeah, here, let me unplug it. There we go. So I don't know if that, I can get you some better pictures, but it's not focusing.
Let me see if I can.
I think I got to figure out how to get my. There we go. Maybe that's better.
It's a little
Sorry
bigger.
for the strobing.
So you did the whole circuit design and everything.
Yeah, circuit design. It's dual sided. So there's a backside and a front side. I have it hooked up to my Pico through pin connectors right now, just to make it easier to troubleshoot. It's easier to get test equipment hooked up this way, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. And yeah, it was. I did the board myself. Well, the board was printed at Osh Park. I did for the first time stencils for the solder paste, and then used I just have a heat gun, and that actually worked really well. Very pleased with it, because there are some really tiny pitches. Like if you look at kind of right here, sorry, I got the lighting better, but on the DAC, or sorry, on the amp has a really fine pitch. I don't know what it is, but I maybe could have done it. It would have been hard though, manually.
So when do you think you'll have this project at a place where you can release the files for the community to share and maybe build their own?
I am. So it was on hold for a couple months. I mean, maybe end of the year if I'm lucky. A lot of it depends on like how much time I get to work on it. I actually think I have some of them released, maybe not everything. So what I do is I put everything in a GitHub or in a Git folder, and then I put it onto GitHub. So it will be on my GitHub soon if it's not there already. Both the software and the hardware files, because I try and release everything under a Creative Commons or similar license.
Okay, if you don't mind, send that to me in private chat, and I'll display that on the screen for other people to see.
Cool. Can do.
Sound good? Okay,
yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. All right, who is up next?
I can go.
Jesse, we would love for you to.
All right.
Let me make you the king. Love the background there, buddy.
Yeah, I don't remember where I got that from. It's a free poster from somewhere.
Oh, this is big. You're touching the thing you're showing us.
Yeah. All right. So currently my only commercial like homemade project I've had so far is my dice lamp here, which I made for my wife for Christmas. It holds this off the shelf D20. And the original design had breakout boards and Arduino inside, and people like commented on it and liked it. So eventually I had to make a commercial one. So I redesigned the base, and I have a custom pretty much Arduino board inside of here that I designed with the lights on it, and I have buttons and a barrel jack, and it has dot star LEDs on the top, and then this one I could more commercially make and sell for people. And I sold, I don't know, 3-4 dozen maybe. And then because the Atmega was getting hard to get, I came up with my next version, which uses a RP 2040. And I based it on the Pico originally, and it has an encoder and has some other cool features and a USB-C connector, and a new top board, a separate light board. I'm using up my old light boards, but then I designed a new one that has top and bottom LEDs for a colored one. But the most recent thing I did was the Dungeons and Dragons movie came out recently. And I was able to go to a pre-release from a board game store called I'm Bored in Madison, Wisconsin. And I've always wanted to make my dice lamp into a dice staff so I can bring to conventions, because I go to a lot of gaming conventions. So I designed this staff, and it has my lighted top board. This is actually PVC scraped up and painted to look like we're wood. And it has my dice lamp top board in here. It has an Arduino, an Adafruit Qt Py and a backpack board for power. And then it's got a Cap Touch board in there. So I might have messed up the Cap Touch when it kind of falls apart here. But basically, yeah, Cap Touch, so you can do modes and stuff. You can turn it on and off. if it was working. It was working on Thursday, which is when it mattered most. But yeah, it has some cap touch that goes to this copper foil tape, which was a real pain in the butt to cut. I'm going to redesign that coupler to be a little stronger. I'm still going to have cap touch, but I'm going to just have the wires stick out with 3D print. And then I'll probably fill that area with some colored epoxy. But yeah, so this is my extension of a project from, first prototype, several revisions, commercial, and then extending it to other purposes. So
Jesse, that, my friend, I think we can all agree is just too cool. All right, buddy. I don't know how much you're selling them for, but I want one. How do we? I know you're not probably selling those yet, but how do we
the
make them?
staffs know.
Where do we get instructions and all of that good stuff?
I don't have instructions out yet. I'm going to redesign. I'm going to make probably a circuit board that has all the guts on it, because right now they're just kind of shoved in there and soldered together and loose. And so I think it'd be better if there were some circuit boards that had the RP2040 on there and the switch and a breakout for the cap touch. So it'll be a while before that's available in a write-up. And I have the original dice lamp. Everything available online. This new dice lamp, I sell them. I don't have the 3D files available, but I have like the schematic and the code and everything out on the internet. So.
All right.
Short question. Where do you sell the lamp?
So I was selling them on Etsy for a while and to friends and family, but then I talked to several board game stores in the area. So Noble Knight Madison, or in Madison, Wisconsin, sold like, I don't know, about 3 dozen of these lamps. I think they're out, so I'm gonna have to make another batch. So basically local board game stores and like Etsy. So.
Cool.
That is just too cool, Jesse. I think the world needs more of those. So please, by all means, share. And I would imagine too, if you need any help designing 3D models of anything, you're going to find some takers, because that project is just too cool.
Mm-hmm.
Too cool.
Thank you.
If you guys want to check out the comments as well, you'll notice that quite a few people have commented on that lamp as really, really liking it. The rest of our comments seem to revolve around urinating on electric fences. Don't try that at home. That's best to convince a friend to do. Don't do that yourself. All right, who's next?
I'll go. Just because what I've got to show at the moment is kind of played off of Jesse. I saw his dice lamp project a while back. This is you find the face that's actually still lighting up. This hasn't been plugged in for a while. This was intended partly as a Christmas ornament. It's USB. It's got a LiPo battery in it, and just spends its time twinkling. It'll do Christmas colors or just general RGB. But if you shake it, it rolls the dice. It leaves one pixel turned on. It works pretty well. This is all 3D printed. I'm not happy with the assembly process. It was kind of fiddly. So I'm working on another version. I've got custom boards made but not assembled yet. I need to do that one of these days, but it's a lot of other life things have happened in the past 6 or 8 months. So, but yeah, thank you, Jesse, for the inspiration. And I made 3 of them and gave them to my stepkids for Christmas last year, and it was pretty well received. But I really want to finish the new ones so that I can actually, like Jesse, sell a few. People have shown interest. It's just been more than I have to get it together.
That's okay. That's still a very cool project, Brian. And I think we've seen you. We lost somebody here. I think we've seen you in the various stages of that. So thank you for sharing. And again, just like Jesse and Andrew, if you guys want to share your GitHub links or any other social links that we have that can get the people in the viewing audience, get them to those projects where they can fork it and make it their own. Please share those with me, and I'll put them on the screen. Share those in the private chat for StreamYard, and then I will copy paste them into the public banners. Okay.
Jesse needs back in.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Next up, bitluni or Elliot? Who wants to go next? bitluni made a face first. All right. He said no, he didn't. We've got to unmute you, my friend.
Okay.
He's zipped.
I'll do it.
He's zipped. Elliot's next. Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna give screen sharing a whirl, so bear with me here.
Making my life difficult. I like it.
Yeah, it's gonna get ugly. Okay. Who wants to guess which monitor I should share? 1, 2, or 3?
3,
Nope, that's the wrong
2,
one. Okay,
1.
that'll work.
Okay, I knew I'd get it.
All right. Can you guys see this picture?
Yes, tell us about this picture, sir.
It's exactly what it looks like. It's a wheelbarrow with tracks, and it's electric. So
Nice.
remote control. It's not autonomous, although I think a lot of people expect that it should be. This is like the third in the series of these things I've been making. I made a red one first, and then I made a black one, and then I made this one. So I've got a big backyard and I'm really lazy. So somehow it was easier to build this than walk across and do it the old-fashioned way. I'm gonna just pick some random pictures from this gallery here and then say some words, and you interrupt me and ask some questions.
And
Yeah.
let me interrupt you right now. This is for all the makers on the cast and also anybody in the comments. If you have questions about Elliot's project, please do ask. We've seen it go from nothing to, now he's at version 3. It's amazing. So please take a minute to pop out and ask stuff. Also, I'm going to start putting the links to our creators on the channel at the bottom. These aren't for Elliot's wheelbarrow. These are for the creators that came a minute ago. We're just a little late to the draw. All right, Elliot, what do you got for us?
Okay, so I'll just kind of walk you through the journey of making this. I spent a lot of time learning SolidWorks because I had just got it, and also mocking this thing up in virtual reality, basically. I'm using motors from electric wheelchairs because they're pretty awesome. And I found a set of tracks on the internet. They showed up on like AliExpress or Alibaba first. They made their way to Amazon. But these were pretty much just what I needed because they're small. A lot of the tracks for like ATVs and stuff are big or really expensive. So these kind of were the whole catalyst for the thing. I always wanted a little tank, but yeah, making tracks is hard. Buying them is much easier. But I mocked this up. This is the part that I fabricated. It's partly laser cut, partly just bandsaw and welder. But kind of my scheme was take all the components that I'm not making. So, for example, this is a case for, I'm guessing, a pistol. These motors I already had. These casters came from a wheelchair. Batteries are the size that batteries are. These were some linear actuators. So I kind of just puzzled them all together until I was happy with the way it looked. And then I started building. I've got a CNC machine in my shop. It's from 1985, but it does the trick. One of the key things to making this work was connecting the motors to the tracks. Unfortunately, the motors had a tapered shaft on them, so there was no off-the-shelf part I could buy to make this happen. So I made some. It was probably the hardest part of the whole deal. It was a lot of fun. I got to use a friend of mine's CNC EDM to cut a keyway in the tapered bore on the sprocket. So that was kind of interesting. Never done that before. I'm just going to keep scrolling here. Did some welding. So inside of this case, this is a PCB of my own design. Had it manufactured with JLC PCB, just like everybody else who's cheap. This is an off-the-shelf RC receiver and transmitter. I found one that basically perfectly fit my requirements. And my requirements are, it needs to fit in your pocket and not be humongous, basically. I'm going for practicality. So if you're shoveling stuff, then walking around and then shoveling more stuff, picking up like a full-blown RC transmitter just isn't very practical. This is roughly the size of a Wii nunchuck. So this was another like key part of making the thing like useful. I've got a motor driver here that I did not invent. This was kind of a cheat code I did. It's a little ugly, but if you salvage a wheelchair, one of these power chairs, they usually have like a controller in them that you can't use because it has too many safety features. It's too slow, really boring. But if you take them apart and cut the back of them off, you can access the other side of these pins and reuse all the connectors. They're pretty beefy. This is a really nice way to do it. I only have one hole in my case, and it's for the back panel of the old control module. And then we could just kind of see some. This gives you an idea of like what it does. Drives around, dump some stuff out, drive around some more.
So cool.
It's a lot of fun. The people that see it, they ask me how much and can they have it, which makes me happy. That's exactly the feedback that I'm looking for. I think this is something if when I was a kid I would have seen, I would have dreamt about it because it was just looked like so much fun. If you've ever seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, that lawnmower they had, uh, always stuck in my brain as like, well, that looks like the best way to mow the lawn. I did attach a lawnmower to it. Also does exactly what you would think. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, I really enjoyed combining a lot of different, I guess you call it disciplines, but it's running code that I've written. I've got a circuit board that I've designed. The fabrication I did myself. So it's all kind of homemade, but there's a lot of different parts in here. There's a little bit of 3D printing, a little bit of laser cutting, a little welding, bunch of machining, just fun stuff. So this is my current most fun project.
So we did get a couple questions in there. Some David Watts asked, how much did it cost to do this? Does it?
If my time was worth nothing, you could make one of these. Okay, if you didn't have to buy any tools and your time was worth nothing, $800 to $1,200. Tracks are $300. Wheelchairs are free if you find one that's discarded, and a few $100 other for components, and then the steel. Depending, I actually had it laser cut locally. It was fairly affordable, but yeah, you're in that range. If you want to go more economical, find a wheelchair like this. Well, not like this. Make it look like this. This is, we took the seat off. We added a bucket, a linear actuator to do the dumping, and the electronics. So you could get away with something like this for a couple $100, depending on whether you have to buy batteries or not. And this is running just 24-volt lead acid, same as the wheelchair. I was considering switching to like a power tool, like lithium battery, something that's easy to change out and recharge. But you just can't beat lead acid for the capacity, at least for this application, in my opinion. And also, being really heavy is a positive thing for traction here, so that helps. Okay, next question.
What tier of Patreon do I need to be in order for you to convert it into a battle bot?
I actually think it could kill somebody as is, so
yeah,
you don't even need to.
Oh, hey, beautiful.
Yeah, especially with the lawnmower attachment.
Right?
Just take off the shroud. How much does it weigh?
It's 250-ish pounds would be my estimate. I actually did weigh it without batteries. Let's just scroll through these random pictures until we find one. This is without any of the wheelbarrow or actuator on it and no batteries in it, so 185 pounds. So yeah, it's probably around 250.
And then Elliot, I have a couple questions. One, I don't think you made this just to make this. You made this for a
Well,
purpose, for a friend. Tell us about
I
that story.
the first one I made was for a buddy of mine who's in a wheelchair. So he was in a motorcycle accident 7 or 8, 9, long time ago, years ago, and we actually. So he lives in a small house that he rents, and the first problem he actually. Well, let me rephrase that. Independence is a big concept that he values. Makes perfect sense. And he's got a lawn, so we built him a lawnmower, and it was the same idea, right? Wheelchair motors, stuck him on a little mower, gave him a remote control. He's been using it for years. Um, we built him a second iteration of that charges itself, and that's also been really successful. And then somebody said, "Hey, my mom just was getting rid of this other wheelchair. Do you want it?" And I can't say no. I didn't actually have a need for it, but it occurred to me like, well, why don't we just find a wheelbarrow and make another like yard tool out of it? So we did, and it turns out it was just a lot of fun to play with, and that kind of set me on the course of making more. So this is his. This one's my parents use. They get a lot of attention in the neighborhood. People come up asking about it. And then I finally got around to building one for myself because I was jealous.
That's fantastic, Elliot. Absolutely fantastic. Any other questions for Elliot before we move on to bitluni? And we just lost someone again.
Oh, I
no,
stopped sharing.
You stopped sharing. Okay, perfect. Absolutely fascinating. And sorry, I'm off screen there. I'm working off two different computers. All right, then with that, bitluni, you're up, my friend.
So I was on the Makercast last month and showed already like this mini console that I seen emailed, and I was on the Hacker Day meetup where I showed new features. But today I received like 2 weeks ago I received my boards for new product that I'm working on, also on the live streams, and that's basically there are some LEDs blinking. It's hard to focus. Here we go. So that's a RISC-V super cluster. So I can show the tile maybe like that here. These are the 10 cent, actually 14 cent, because the 20 pin version is a little bit more expensive, and you can probably never get it for 12 cent. What's the intended cost of that? And I thought, since it's so cheap, I want to just put a few of those on one PCB and see if I can make small project that's still cheap, but it has clickbait potential, since I'm a YouTube maker. And yeah, it's actually the first time that I made like a bus system on a project of mine. And it's also, since it's so dense, there is an 8-bit bus somewhere there, and there's extra pins, and we have per microcontroller we have like one ADC, and every of those like extra GPIOs and buses are routed to this connector with that's 1.27 millimeters pin pitch. And I made a carrier board for that as well, with another micro RISC-V, which is underneath. I can't pull it off, which controls, like communicates and sends the data. It has native USB to the smaller MCUs, and we have some like edge board connectors on the side where we can make use of the 80s GPIOs from the smaller MCUs. And yeah, it was quite challenging, since it's the first time I made a 4-layer PCB. Otherwise, I wasn't able like to put on the bus and all the GPIOs of all the MCUs in that small space. And it worked like first try. I had some trouble, and interesting, like we wanted to talk about like signal and debugging. I actually, this is like also open drain bus, so there is only like pull-ups on the main board, and all the others are just pulling down the signal, so I don't release the magic smoke if there are conflicting information roaming on the bus somewhere. And as you can see, like we just made on my last live stream, which are on Wednesdays, we made like some packets arriving at the microcontrollers, which just toggles the LEDs. So the main CPU is like sending data to the smaller MCUs already, and it's arriving. And for that, I had to like make this bus working, which is quite fun to do. It doesn't have any purpose. I think it's not like a supercomputer because the small MCUs don't even have a hardware multiplier on them. But still, it's fun to work and experiment with that. And yeah, that's basically the project that I wanted to show off today. And I'm still editing the video on that. So
That's really cool.
yeah.
That is quite the project. Do we from our groups? And by the way, Elliot, I had to mute you. I'm unmuting you. Do you guys have any questions for bitluni, for example? Like, why did you make this? I'll leave that for the panel.
Yeah, why did you make this?
Yeah, because how many RISC-V cores are too many? That's the question. And if you look like at the design, it's like tileable. So if you put like multiple of these boards, which have like 16 MCUs each, like next to each other, it makes up for actually a matrix already. And yeah, it got a little bit ridiculous. Once you start with designing PCBs, then you make one which has like, so this covers like stacks more of these, and then you end up with 256 MCUs and really big edge board connectors like that. And that's basically the biggest board that I made so far. Didn't test it yet, have to populate it myself. The MCUs weren't available at JLC when I started this project. But it's, yeah, the madness going on.
Wow. As we just got a great comment in, I'm trying to keep track of everything. But as Deshpu says, I did it not because it's easy, but because I thought it would be easy. Very true.
Still stealing that.
Sometimes we do things because we can.
And now we know who's responsible, as the comment says, now we know who's responsible for the chip shortage.
No, no. No, I only bought like for one of those PCBs, like MCU 300, which is not much really.
Let me ask you, bitluni, where did you learn how to make PCBs? I think that's a skill in the maker community
YouTube.
that we see. Just YouTube.
Yeah. YouTube and practicing. I learn every time I do a new design, I learn new stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. Are there any resources that you can point the viewers to? There's a lot of stuff out there, and sifting and finding the signal through all the noise is always the challenge. Is there any way that you can, or do you have any resources that you could provide the community off the top of your head?
Oh, actually working on live streams is quite beneficial. Like, I mean, it's only like 20 people or up to 30 people joining my live streams. They're not quite like known or popular or whatever, but the people are quite smart and knowledgeable, and they can always point me to new stuff that I learn. So even though it's like doing anything live is harder because you can't read and listen at the same time, and I have like TTS running and have to take care of cameras and whatnot. But the information or the help with debugging and so on is so valuable from experts that are actual electrical engineers, because I'm a software engineer by trade. That's quite valuable. And also, I don't know, just looking up the stuff that I don't know on Google, I don't know, or YouTube. Most of the time I'm too lazy to read, so I just hop on YouTube, and there is a maker that did it before. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. I don't know if we want to share the resource that the rest of us use to learn to make PCBs or not, since it's kind of the ownership and everything is a little wonky. But I'll tell you guys, if anybody does want to learn how to make printed circuit boards, we did run a class over at teachmepcb.com where you can still log in, you can still create an account, you can still look and read all the resources. But I don't know that we're ever going to teach a class there again. But that's actually how I met Andrew and how I met Jesse and how I met Elliot and how I met Brian.
So what's the issue with the site?
Who owns it? So the site is still up, but the issue is we don't know who owns it anymore.
Oh.
So it's it's one of those things where the company who paid for all of that to be produced got bought. They were purchased by a much larger company, and the site wasn't included in the purchase. So it's just kind of floating out in space as far as I can tell. So we can't work on it because it could be somebody else's property, but they don't seem to know they own it. So it's,
Okay,
what do we do? But anyways, yeah.
I actually have mine, Mark.
Oh, your Teach Me PCB board?
Yeah, for the second course, I was co-hosting, and we had to do macro pads, and we had to do, this is my example one.
So if anybody's interested.
Elliot has his too.
Yep, everybody, that was our project. So
nice.
it was good. So if anybody out there in TV land wants to go there, you can use the resources, right? It's not shut down, but I can't run another course there until we figure that out. And I don't know if we'll ever figure that out at this point. It's been a year and a half. So with that, the next thing that I'd like to do are share a couple of these, just a few of these sites for everybody out there. ElliotMade.com. You can see Elliot's projects and his wheelbarrows. So that's a pretty easy one. And he also provided us with the blog updates that show the build processes. So if you guys want to go out there and make your own killdozer, you absolutely can. Andrew Ferguson is over at andrewferguson.net. So if you want to sneak over there and see what he's got going on, love Andrew, love his stuff. We could all work a little better on documentation, but these guys are doing just a smash up job. You can also get a hold of his files and everything at github.com/fergbrain. And Jesse is over at blog.colcago.com. Apparently at page ID 846. I mean, who's not going to remember that? That'll be good. And then Brian, I don't know that I have yours yet. So when you get
I don't have anything published as of yet, and I will work on it, but who knows? Too many new projects.
I hear you. No worries. Anyhow, let's go and move on to the next part of our stream where I wanted to talk a little bit about troubleshooting. So whenever you build a project, nothing ever goes right. In my experience, there's always issues. It's never the easy way, which kind of leads to my online moniker of Mark Hardway Hughes. I always seem to find the edge use cases where things just go south. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit were some test equipment pieces that you guys use to help troubleshoot things, how to use your test equipment, how to make the most of your test equipment. This is where Daniel will be great when we bring him back in after he gets back, maybe in a few months, we'll bring him back to host and we can have a little bit more of an intelligent conversation. But in the meantime, I wanted to start by sharing one of my tools that I like. Let me see if I have the right camera here. I've got the right camera. I just don't have it in the right spot. This is an LCR meter that I absolutely love. The way that this thing works, and I'm on the wrong person. Sorry, I'm first time hosting StreamYard. There we go. So this is a little LCR meter, and it's got a pair of tweezers at the front of it. And you can sit there and touch it to whatever it is that you're doing. It automatically figures out if you're looking at resistance, capacitance, or inductance, which in my opinion is just absolutely amazing. So fits in the palm of your hand. Let's back out a little bit. Fits in the palm of your hand. You can just sit there, hit it on a couple of pads, you know, in 04, 02, 06, 03 parts. You just sit there, you could test them in circuit, no problem. So that's what I wanted to share. And do you guys have anything out there that you would like to?
I have one of those too, Mark.
I'll take one.
Ooh,
Yeah,
fancy.
they're good for SMT stuff. Like that's like with the tweezers, because otherwise, you know, a standard meter-based LCR works pretty well, but these are great for SMT.
Absolutely.
What's the price point on those?
Anywhere
Oh.
from $80 to $400.
Yeah, I think mine was, I don't know, I think mine was like 60 to 80. I got it. SaneSmart gave me mine for free. So
They gave you one for free?
I win a lot of SaneSmart contests. I also won a resin printer.
Nice.
So
I will add though, if you don't want the full LCR meter, you know, depending on what it is that you want to do, I know, buddy, I know, I'm working on it. I don't know why it keeps defaulting to bitluni, but we love having you on screen. I think that's why. But one of the other things that you can do is just get a pair of tweezers that have probe ends and hook them up to your meter. If you don't need like inductance measurements, you can do resistance and capacitance just with these. This is not the optimal screen. There we go. So those are like 18 bucks, 20 bucks. There's not much to them there. Okay, I'm going to try to change screens without putting bitluni on blast. Yay, I did it.
I have a pair of those. I am the cheap one here.
Yay!
Oh wait, I molded them. Look at that, they're molten. I
that happens. Is that
this
from
is my old school LCR meter where the battery is always empty.
What was that, Jesse?
I was gonna say, were they melted from getting close to an iron or a mistake in measurement?
No, it was too close, I think, to my hot air station, which is I just put it there while it's running, and yeah. That's now my way to measure is like I'm the cheap guy here, so 40 bucks. This thing is so cool because it doesn't die. All the other ones have broken fuses, and this cheap unit thing can measure like also it I don't think it can measure like it only measures capacity and resistance, but it's unbreakable, especially measuring current.
That's important. Having a meter that won't die,
Yeah,
you know, no matter what you do to it, is
and
certainly
it
quite
doesn't drain
important.
battery while it's in standby or off or whatever, unlike the other one.
Equally important. Yeah, if you do buy one, you want something that auto offs, because the number of times that all of us have left our meters on is just ridiculous. But I will say something. Just because you have a meter and you buy it, and even if it's a good meter like a Fluke, you know, you do have to get those things occasionally calibrated. You do have to double check the measurements against a much nicer meter from time to time, right? The meter that bitluni showed us is probably what was it, maybe a 3-digit DMM. Compare that against a 5-digit DMM. See if you're getting the same measurements. Just because you get a number on your screen doesn't mean that that value exists in reality. One of the issues that I often see in labs is, you know, people will take it, well, it's a nice meter, it's a Fluke. And it's like, okay, well, was it calibrated? Yeah, it was calibrated. I was like, well, I don't trust the measurement. Well, why not? And it's like, well, yes, it was calibrated, but it was calibrated in 2003. It's now 2023. Usually calibration's good for like a year. So just something to keep in the back of your mind. Just because you read the number doesn't mean it matches reality. What
And
other?
if you don't want to calibrate, just put a for reference only sticker on it.
Yeah.
That's what we do in the labs I've been to.
That works too, but just
Yeah.
remember it. Something though that can give you a value add for your current meters are new probes. So I'm going to take over again for a second, and maybe, dang it, it really likes bitluni. So what I've got here is a set of all sorts of probes. these are the fancy schmancy fluke ones, and they, they are nice, and you can tag and grab things and hold on to them much easier. But this is a very, very, very similar set for a fraction of the price that you can get from all sorts of random vendors on Amazon. So you don't have to sit there and fight and hold things. You can get, these little clips, alligator clip companions. You can get things that can pierce wires. All things that make your life much, much easier in the field. All right. What other? Sorry, go ahead.
I would say, I mean, if you have a suggested place to buy, I'd be kind of curious, because one of the challenges I've had with buying stuff, the less expensive non-fluke stuff, I mean, yeah, it's great. It works perfect for hobbyists, but I've had some bad luck in the past with test equipment or things that are, we'll say, not great connections, or subpar wire quality. So if you had any pointers, that would be, or just you just go buy it, see if it works, and throw it out if it doesn't.
Yeah, if you're going low end.
I usually view, when I'm doing electronics engineering work, I usually view my time valuable enough that I don't want to screw around with crap test equipment. So I will go get a fluke set of whatever, just because I've had so many things go wrong with me with that cheap stuff that you're talking about, Andrew, that I can't let my mind focus on that. I just want the stuff to work. So I'll usually pay just for peace of mind. That said, I keep the fluke equipment, and when my friends and handymen and whatever come over and they ask to borrow stuff, I totally give them the other connectors. No problems. So anyhow. All right, so what else do we have to share?
I mean, besides having a multimeter a multimeter is going to get you a long way, but I think at some point in your career, you're going to have some type of oscilloscope for time varying signals. And even like a cheapo, like handheld scope, I think will, give you something just to let you know something's going on. Like I have a really old DSO Nano here. There we go. Let me share this. I have this little scope that I bought many, many years ago, and its bandwidth is poor and its resolution is poor, but it at least lets you know that something's happening. And these scopes are, pretty cheap. I think I might have bought this at SparkFun for like $100, but nowadays scopes are even cheaper like that. What's that brand? Siglent. Like you can get lots of their stuff cheap, and they're good intro hobby level. And I think that's the next step up beyond just having your multimeter, which will also get you a long way.
You can get a long way just seeing there's something going on. I'll confess, that's how I use my scope most of the time. I don't try to decode serial whatever or like really make measurements, but usually the presence or absence of something that looks like a signal is close enough for the problems I usually create.
Yeah, so I mean, along with what you're saying, being able to divide the problem in half, like knowing where in the circuit the problem is hugely helpful. Like with my project, with my audio, knowing if the issue is occurring like after the analog to digital conversion, after the digital to analog conversion, or if it's happening after or even before that, like is the signal even getting to the digital to analog converter? That was hugely helpful. I used the oscilloscope for that. I also have used like this MSO19 in the past, which is a logic analyzer. It has pins on the side here that you can use. Comes with like this little bundle of joy, and I love it because like I can hook it up to my Surface, my Microsoft Surface tablet, and just I can take it places. So I was helping a friend do like some troubleshooting with their on their sailboat. They have there's a command bus, and so making trying to see where all the commands were going and which ones were getting to which systems. It was hugely helpful for that. Yeah, the other one I use a fair amount is I did get a binocular inspection microscope, which you can see it right there. which I use a fair amount. It's great for inspecting, like when I've done like that little tiny surface mount soldering. That's been super helpful to have in doing like repairs on things. But I think oscilloscope, I would say, is I probably use the most often, or the oscilloscope or multimeter.
Definitely. And you can get good scopes for, under $400, no problem. I will offer a couple other options out there for those of you who might have restricted space. I was working with an engineer the other day who has like a small, maybe a 24-inch coffee table in the corner of his garage is all he's allowed to have at home, which what we did was we set him up with some smaller stuff, things like the Analog Discovery 2 or Liquid Instruments makes, in my opinion, a superior version of this for like $100 more called the Moku Go. But you can have signal generators and oscilloscopes and logic analyzers all in a single small package. It'll get you a pretty good distance towards looking, like I think it was Andrew and Elliot saying, just look for the signal, see if it's there, even if you don't know how to decode it. Although decoding it is super valuable too. And no, we are not. Fluke is not a sponsor of this channel. I just happen to like their stuff. I also like Keysight. I also like Tektronix. I just like stuff. I don't know what to tell you. All right. Any other toys and tricks and tips before I share something else?
Yeah, I've got
go on.
the for a scope. It's probably the crappiest option out there. It's a little board called the Espotec Labrador. Look it up on Amazon. It has a USB interface for its data output, but so you hook it up to the thing and it gives you or you hook it up to a computer and it lets you see the whatever waveform it's on there. It's pretty low resolution, but like you said, it lets me know if it's a signal. It doesn't even have BNC jacks or anything. It just has headers that you can plug into. But it was $50 and it does enough. But the other thing I've got that I've used a couple times, and if you're in the habit of collecting old circuit boards and want to know what the parts are, these little things, I call them a transistor tester. I think they're just about all the same, but this is one of the ones that had a decent case. They even sell them just the bare boards. You plug a transistor in there, it'll tell you what kind of transistor it is, what the voltages are, what the pins are. You don't have to know anything about it. You just stick it into the holes, and it'll tell you all sorts of things about transistors, MOSFETs, all kinds of stuff. Really useful.
All right. Thank you, Brian. I will share one other thing, and then we'll wrap up the show. I just have to make sure I get the right channel.
Can I say something that we might have missed, like a pro tip on getting a scope, because that's like multimeter is the first thing to buy, and the second one to put like the signal into a temporal relation. It's the scope, and my first scope was actually an analog one from eBay, and it was a 100 megahertz scope with 4 channels, which is like what you need like almost forever, unless you're doing some crazy stuff. And there is no aliasing artifacts. You can't like decode stuff with that, but it was like driving my lab for years until I got like the first deal with a scope manufacturer. So actually looking at analog scopes on eBay, even under 100 megahertz resolution is always an option, and it does the job.
And I would say, actually, I think you make a couple good points there. So one of them is the signal, the max signal it can look at, right? So 100 megahertz, that's fine for almost everything I've done. I've never needed anything more than that, to be honest, because a lot of stuff that I end up doing is like SPI or I2C or low. They're always like the low bit rate stuff like that. So you don't need something terribly high. And there's other technical issues as you go higher where other things like capacitance end up becoming an influence. And then the other thing I wish, because I have a Rigol, I think it goes up to, I don't know, 100. Yeah, but it's only a 2-channel. And I do wish I would have gotten like a 4-channel, because there's been a lot of times where that's helpful. And I would rather have more channels, less frequency capability. That would be my input.
Also, when you're looking at those numbers, if you're looking at digital scopes, there's a difference between bandwidth and sampling rate. So even if it's like, if it's a 100 megahertz scope, but the sample rate is like 1 gig a sample per, or 1 gig samples per second, you can look at faster signals. They just might start getting attenuated and slewed and stuff from your analog bandwidth.
Yeah, I have the scope behind me was $40 locally. It's great for like repeating signals, but I would say having storage or a digital scope, really nice to capture like a one-time event. It's kind of hard to catch at the right moment if you don't have that.
True, that's true.
Well, maybe y'all will have us back sometime on the Makercast, and we'll do some live troubleshooting and some live debugging. But there is one last tip I wanted to leave the viewing audience with. So I'm going to, dang it, bitluni. It really likes you, man. It really, every time I go to single channel, it's bitluni. Anyways, this little device right here, and I know some of my guests know what that is. I know some of my guests don't know what that is, but I'll tell you, this is a little spring clip. And what you do is take your probe, your oscilloscope probe, and we can go out a little bit now. You take your oscilloscope probe and you take this ground clip and you just take it and you just toss it in the trash, because that thing adds an absolute phenomenal amount of inductance to all of your measurements. This ground return, this reference connection, creates a huge loop. And that huge loop, if you're looking at fast signals, uses Faraday's law, so minus L di dt, to create huge voltages that just don't exist. You're creating them when you're using this thing. So these little spring clips will thread on, and they do come in a few different sizes, and they connect to the probe so that when you're doing measurements, now you've got a really, really tiny loop. So you've got a really, really tiny L, a really tiny inductance, and that can vastly improve the accuracy of your scope measurements. So with that, that's my only little tip. I will bring everybody back on, including myself. Go ahead and unmute yourselves, and let's just do a once around. I would like to thank all of you, and then Elliot, do you happen to have your little fiber device ready?
Oh man, it's in a box up there.
Okay, never mind. I was going to leave that on the screen while we talked.
Next week.
So let's do a little once around with everybody. If you have any final thoughts about the cast, and then we'll end it. So we'll go backwards, starting with Brian.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was fun. My current project, at least that I started this weekend, my wife was getting into our truck last week, and one of the running boards came off from a little bit too much rust. And I started pricing things, and I decided that what I really wanted was the cool ones that you open the doors and the running boards swing out from under the truck. And they're going to be lit up. The commercial ones are like $1,500. I bet you I could build a lot more cooler stuff for that price. I probably won't save any money long run, but I've got started designing, circuit boards and lighting and mechanisms and stuff. It'll be an interesting journey.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Elliot.
Hey, yeah, I'd just say thanks for having me on, and really like reading the comments. So I don't interact with a ton of people on the internet, so it's fun to do it once in a while.
Is that something you might change?
Sure, yeah. Just got to get motivated, right?
Well, hopefully the comments and the well wishes are enough to motivate you. People really like your stuff. I'm a huge fan too. Jesse.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I just like to say like community is one of the big driving factors into like getting me motivated to make stuff. If I see Elliot make things, I'm like, I can make something cool too. So like being a part of making communities, I think, has furthered cool projects and things. So
Absolutely.
thanks for having me.
Andrew.
Yeah, I think it's never too late or too early to start learning. My background, it's in electrical engineering, but never learned, we didn't learn how to do PCBs in college, which I thought was interesting. So, engineering is a very vast field, and there's always opportunities to learn new things.
Absolutely. Even if you are a double E and you graduate, right, your knowledge base is outdated within 4 years. You have to push yourself to learn. You have to push yourself to try new things. And in fact, that's how everybody on the call met, was trying new things. So thank you. bitluni.
So I like to see that we got a bunch of new people on the Makercast. Thank you, Mark, for dragging everyone out of their corner and put them here on the stream. I hope like this cross-pollination stays like that, and we got plenty new people that will just hop on here every month, every first Sunday of the month, and yeah, it's open for anyone to host on this channel and show however the project, whatever it is. I really liked what we saw today.
Well,
even the small things. Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you afforded me the opportunity to host. It's been an absolute blast. I certainly do need to learn a little bit more about StreamYard and figure out why it keeps, tagging you every time I change screens. It's like, let's look at bitluni. But it's been a fun time.
Yeah.
Daniel is fine. He's going through a life event that is wonderful and miraculous, and he'll be back in a few months, and maybe we can have him host one. And you never know, that guy likes to give stuff away. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you to all my guests. Thank you to everybody in the comments in the community. We'll see you in the Discord, and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.